Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Galetz, and I'm an industry education coordinator working with the Regina District Industry Education Council and SunWest School Division. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Carly Ousdal, who is an occupational therapist working in Edmonton. Carly is a graduate of Rosestown Central High School, and today she'll tell us about her career journey. Just a reminder before we begin, this session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you or others to view in the future. We'd also like to request that any students who watch this session go to our website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found near the top of the web page. Completion of this survey gets your name in a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Again, the website is www.rdiec.ca. Once again, welcome, Carly, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So as Mr. Galetz said, my name is Carly. I am an occupational therapist, or OT for short. I work in Barrhead, Alberta. So what is occupational therapy? This is very commonly misunderstood to be a job that helps people get jobs or helps them get back to work. This is a myth. It could be a part of occupational therapy, but it's a very small part. So we are a part of the rehabilitation team, which we often work closely alongside with physical therapy and speech-language pathology. Rehabilitation is a set of interventions designed to optimize function and reduce disability in individuals with health conditions in interaction with their environment. So it's a really rewarding part of the health continuum. As you get to watch people go from moments of sickness or their worst states, really, and then you get to watch them improve and help them along that journey. So it's a really rewarding part of the health continuum to be a part of. So the World Federation of Occupational Therapists define occupational therapy as a client-centered health profession concerned with promoting health and well-being through occupation. Occupation is a key word that we will better define in the following slides. But our primary goal of occupational therapy is to enable people to participate in the activities of everyday life. Occupational therapists achieve this outcome by working with people and communities to enhance one's ability to engage in occupations they want to, need to, or are expected to do, or by modifying the occupation or the environment to better support their occupational engagement. So I know when I first read that, I was very overwhelmed and I still didn't visualize or couldn't really conceptualize what that actually looks like for a job in your daily life. So we are going to break it down so that it is a lot more understandable. So this is a really nice visual that I find helpful in understanding the full scope of occupational therapy. So this is called the Canadian Model of Occupational Performance and Engagement, CMOP-E for short. As you can see, it represents three main things. The yellow triangle represents the person. The blue circle represents everything the person does in their daily life. And the green circle represents our environments that we're in, not just your physical environment, but institutional, cultural, social. So that is the CMOP-E. We are going to break that definition down from the World Federation and look at it in relation to this visual. So the first part of the World Federation's definition reads, occupational therapy is a client-centered health profession. So when looking at the model, this is talking about the yellow triangle. It is looking at the person. And in OT, we look at the whole person. We look at their cognitive health, so their brain function, their physical health, and also their emotional health. And then at the core of the model, you can see that it brings in spirituality. So what brings us meaning and purpose in life? So that when OT is saying client-centered, we are focused on the whole client. The next part of the World Federation's definition says, so we're health professions concerned with promoting health and well-being through occupation. The primary goal of occupational therapy is to enable people to participate in the everyday activities of life. So this is really the bread and butter of OT. Occupations, what we do. What does that word mean? Which is where a lot of the misinformation comes from. So OT, occupational therapists define occupation as much more than a chosen career. In occupational therapy, occupations refer to the everyday activities that people do to occupy their time, that bring meaning and purpose to life. Occupations include things people need to, want to, and are expected to do. So if we look back at the CMOP-E, occupations are represented in the blue circle by the three main categories: self-care, the need to do; leisure, the want to do; and productivity, the expected to do. So for example, self-care occupations could be as simple as brushing your teeth. Productivity occupations, yes, it could be work, but it could also be volunteering or doing something that brings purpose and meaning to your life. And leisure could be visiting with friends, doing a sport, going to an art program, any of those things. Okay, so if we look at the third part of the World Federation's definition, it says occupational therapists achieve this outcome, and that outcome is getting people doing what they want to do by working with people and communities to enhance their ability to engage in occupations they want to, need to, or are expected to do, or by modifying the occupation or the environment to better support the occupational engagement. So this refers to the rehabilitation part. It refers to the fun part to me. This is what we actually get to do to help people do what they want to do. We proceed doing this in three main ways. So one, either by working with the person, the yellow triangle in the CMOP-E, to improve their abilities, whether it be physical, cognitive, or affective. Two, or we change the task itself. So the occupation, the self-care, the productivity, or the leisure task itself, we change so that the person can do it. Or last, the environment. We can make changes to the environment to better support the person to be able to do that task in that environment. So, for example, if we're looking at the CMOP-E and say we are working with a person who has recently experienced a stroke, and the most important occupation to them is cooking. We could, as OTs, do lots of different things to help them get back to cooking. So we could try a physical treatment to strengthen and increase the coordination of their hands so that they're able to open the jars, do the cutting, that kind of stuff. We could also provide a mental health treatment. Say they're just not motivated to get back to cooking. It's something that they used to love to do, but they're not enjoying it anymore because they've gone through big physical changes with their body, and maybe we need to help teach them some stress management or coping skills to help their mental health and their mood so that they will be able to engage in that occupation. Or another example could be, so we talked about physical, affective. We could also provide treatment for cognition. So lots of times if somebody's had a stroke, their brain function changes. Parts of the brain actually die off, and they don't have the skills to plan and organize and remember things. And that is something that we can actually treat in OT as well. So we can give strategies to remember or practice organizing and sequencing, just like when we were kids. It's something that we can relearn as adults too. So those are parts of the person that we could treat. We could also treat the task itself. Maybe we need to get some adaptive equipment for this person. Maybe they've completely lost function of one hand, and we need to get them a knife that they can use with just one hand. So that's something else we can look at. So that's just one example. There's so many different areas of OT, but this is one of the models. There's other models too that OTs use, but one model that really helped me visualize the breadth of OT. Okay, so as I was just saying, OT, there's so many different areas you can work in. And because we are trained in so many different methods of treatment, we can work in areas like stroke rehabilitation that I just talked about. So you see in the top left picture, the guy doing some balancing practice. That's something that's often used in stroke rehabilitation. You can also work with people with amputations, as seen in the bottom left. We work with equipment and prosthetics, and you can also work with pediatrics, with kids. So the bottom right picture is a common setting you'd see in an OT role with kids. Yeah, you can work in burns, you can work in palliative care. The list goes on and on. It's a really broad career option, which is fun and challenging. To show you some examples of OT out there, those two were both kind of more of the physical treatment that you can do, but there's also settings where OTs can actually work as mental health therapists. Yeah, more in the brain rehab as well, and the affective rehab as well. So roles and responsibilities of occupational therapists. So we mainly do a lot of assessing and then treating. So we try to break down what are the challenges that the person is having and get to the specific challenges, like in that last video with the little gal there. Her fingers were not coordinated or strong enough to push the button through to do her pants up. So we break down to look at exactly what is inhibiting the person from being able to do what they want to do. And then we make a treatment plan for it. And then we treat. So that is a main part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. But so we're assessing, we're planning the treatment, we're treating, then we're monitoring, is this treatment actually working? Do we need to modify it? Has it worked? That's the evaluating, adapting. Sometimes we have to advocate to change the environment or to get some more funding for a person. Sometimes we're coaching family members to help enable an occupation. Lots of times, very often, we're collaborating with physical therapy and speech language pathology. Sometimes we're consulting physicians, surgeons. Sometimes we are coordinating schedules, managing therapy assistants, designing buildings. Sometimes OTs help plan actually structures like hospitals and that kind of stuff so that it's accessible to people with disabilities. Sometimes we're educating, like today I'm trying to educate people on what OT is. And of course we're engaging with people all day, every day. It's definitely a people person kind of job. Okay, so skills and traits suited to OT. I've just added a couple. There is so many different ones as well. But the main ones that I think are important if somebody wants to choose this career would be that you are a communicator, a collaborator, and an encourager. You are working with people, and your sole mission is to help people do what they want to do. And you're working with big healthcare teams. So you do have to have good communication skills and be willing to work as a team and with people and be a motivator for somebody to keep pushing. The other thing that I discovered in OT is that you have to be really creative. Lots of times each person is different, and each person, what they experience or go through is different. So you have to get creative, like the OT did in the video. Like she got creative and cut a hole through a container lid to simulate what it would be like to put a button through the buttonhole. So there's lots of opportunities in OT to be creative. The last one is scholarly and professional. So we do need to do research to make sure we're practicing evidence-based treatments and assessments. And we do have to be professional because we are a trusted healthcare profession. Those two things were really intimidating to me when I started OT, but it is not a bad thing at all, and something that is learned and taught in the program. There are specific classes for how to be a professional and also how to do proper research. Work setting. So as I've alluded to before, there's many different places you can work as an OT. You can work in hospitals, rehabilitation centers and clinics, schools, social agencies, private practice, or you can be self-employed. Salary, benefits, and opportunities. So salary, it's variable. So typically, and I think I looked into it, and I think Saskatchewan and Alberta are very similar in the salary and benefits, as well as the opportunities. But typically you start out more so around $75,000 a year, and then your salary increases each year with experience. And then if you did want to go to a higher level, like say management or teaching or something like that, then you do have opportunity to go up. It's not a whole lot though. So it's about a range of $75,000 to about $90,000 a year, I would say. Benefits, pretty good benefits. We usually get dental coverage for prescription medications, general health like massage, acupuncture, counseling, etc. The one thing that we don't get here is vision care, which is interesting, but overall, it's generally a pretty good benefits package. And there is also a pension package as well that we do get. I know that's also something, if you work in public health in Saskatchewan as well, that they do have a good pension as well, which is very nice to have that security. Opportunities. Yeah, so like I've said multiple times now, there's so many different areas of OT you can work in, so you will never get bored there. If you choose or decide that you don't like a specific area and you thought you might, it's fine, because there's so many different areas you can try. Job security, I have found that it has been really good, especially given the pandemic. A lot of the healthcare staff are burnt out, and there is big staff shortages, so it is not hard to find a job right now. From what I've heard, that's what it's been like for quite a long time. They're in demand, and we're consistently needed. You may need to go rural to start until you can build experience and seniority, but you can find a job. Chances for advancement. There is not a whole lot. It's kind of more so you become an OT and then you work on becoming a good OT. So you can increase to a manager role, or do research, or become a professor. If that is something of interest to you, there is also options to be team leads. So you can lead a group of occupational therapists. You can, so when I said manager roles, take for example, my manager is an occupational therapist by trade, but he manages the whole allied health team for a zone. So there is opportunities like that. Educational requirements. So first you need a bachelor's degree. It doesn't require one specific degree, but there is select courses that are mandatory. So anatomy is one that I can recall off the top of my head. And then there's a couple others. There's not a whole lot that are mandatory. But then after you get your bachelor's degree, you need to apply for a master's degree in occupational therapy. Just want to check my notes on this so I don't miss anything important. Yeah, okay, so from what I've seen for bachelor's degree, the most common is either kinesiology, which is what I did, or psychology. They both kind of give you a good background knowledge of either the physical body or the brain, which are two really big components in occupational therapy. But I had classmates who had various degrees going from neuroscience to drama, And they all brought really beautiful perspectives to the OT program and to their career as an occupational therapist. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a kinesiology or psychology degree. It can be various other degrees. Occupational therapy. So for Saskatchewan students, there is no OT program in Saskatchewan at the time. I did read an article a little while ago, it's probably a couple years ago, that said that they were planning on trying to bring an occupational therapy program to Saskatchewan within the next 10 years was about their time frame. But for right now, they do hold 15 seats at the University of Alberta in Edmonton for Saskatchewan students. So that's a great opportunity, and that is what I did. It's nice because they do have the main cohort, the main class in Edmonton you can attend, or they also do have a satellite program in Calgary that you can attend remotely as well. So, but there is other OT programs, I think, in every single other province other than Saskatchewan. So hopefully one day Saskatchewan gets a program. Okay, rewards of OT. So my favorite is that you get to help people get back to what means the most to them. And that is so rewarding to see people go from not being able to do what they want to do to getting back to it. The other rewards include that it's holistic. You get to treat all areas of the person and the environment. It's broad. Like I said, you'll never get bored. There's so many different areas you can work in. For the most part, OT has regular work hours. The occasional OT role does require some weekend shifts. That's usually if you choose to work in a hospital setting in the cities. Rural, you're usually pretty good to just have a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. That really helps with work-life balance, I find. Job security, like I mentioned earlier, and good benefits and pension plans. Some challenges of OT are, one, I would say burnout. It is a job that requires a lot of care and empathy. Plus, we often have large caseloads and it can feel very overwhelming at times. However, managing this is also a learned skill and something that I am getting better at with experience. The other thing that I find frustrating is gaps in the healthcare system. There's only so much funding to serve the people that you are trying to help. Sometimes you have to get creative to find alternative funding sources or find care for a person to make sure that they don't fall through the gaps. So that can be challenging and heavy on a person. And then the last thing is like OT is greatly misunderstood. So you just have to be patient with people and you do a lot of education about what OT actually is. So my path to OT. So it all started in my guidance counselor's office in high school, Mr. Galetz, who introduced this presentation. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I remember going through different tools, different online tools to kind of figure out what kinds of things interest me and that kind of stuff. And then I looked at what classes in school I did well in, and I knew I wanted to go into something health. With all that information, I was like, okay, health. And I enjoyed physical activity. So I thought, okay, why don't I start with OT? Not OT, kinesiology. So I started with kinesiology at the University of Saskatchewan. And first couple years were hard because going to university is hard. It's a new experience. You're out on your own, you're stressed. Schoolwork can be hard and challenging and getting constantly evaluated. But then by my second, third, fourth year, I started to get the hang of it. And in about my second year, I had a meeting with, it was another form of essentially a guidance counselor in the kinesiology department who was trying to help me pick my minor. And that would decide what I would do for work with my kinesiology degree. When I was doing this, I started doing the same thing. I started doing more investigating, asking people questions. I came to learn that the main things that you could do with a kinesiology degree was physical therapy, occupational therapy, which I did not know what it was. You could become an exercise therapist. You could become a personal trainer. You could do after degree nursing. So all those things were up in there. I looked into OT because I didn't understand what it was. There is when I started talking to people who explained, as I just explained to you, what OT actually is and how holistic it is and how it works with, yes, the physical body, which I enjoy, but also the brain and also the emotional and mental health aspects. And I thought, oh, this is for me. I have an opportunity to be creative. That's what I'll do. So it was hard. I did have to study lots and get good grades and apply. And then I did end up going to Edmonton with one of the Saskatchewan seats to the University of Alberta to attend the program. And again, it was still hard and it was challenging, but it was very much worth my time and money investing in myself and a career that can last a lifetime. So I think that it was absolutely worth going through all the school and stress, and it's a lot less stressful now being out of school. So yeah, it was definitely worth it. Okay, so that's my path. And I think that's it. Questions and references. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent, Carly. I wrote down a few questions here. And we talked about before we started recording, and I think you answered it already, but just to kind of, if you can kind of summarize the key difference between what a physical therapist is and an occupational therapist, if you can kind of sum that up again.
Absolutely. So this is a common question that I get, and a thing that I really didn't understand and wanted to look into myself. There is some overlap. So there is some similarities and there is some differences, which is so hard to define why. What is the difference? Is because there is some gray area. But what helps me really understand is that physical therapy, if you look back at the model of the CMOP-E, they are super specialized in the physical treatment of the body. That is their bread and butter, is the physical muscles, coordination, balance, that kind of thing. We also can do that, but we are not nearly as trained and specialized in the physical treatment. We look at what the person wants to do and consider all the different things that we can do to help them get there. It's also slightly confusing because depending on where you work, the role of OT and PT is split up differently. So take, for example, at the Glen Rose here in Edmonton, physical therapy focuses on the lower extremity and gait, walking, balance, that kind of stuff. Whereas OT focuses on the upper extremity because it tends to be more functional. You're doing things with your hands and your arms and that kind of stuff. So it falls better into our scope of practice. Whereas out here, general practice, out in Alberta, out in Barhead, I am a general OT, and I work closely with the physio. And because of staff shortages, we kind of cover for each other and overlap. So if somebody needs help relearning how to walk, I will do that. But if I'm not available, physio will do that. I tie in the bigger picture, like the home. So we're trying to get somebody home. I'm thinking, okay, we need to get them to be able to cook. We need to get them into their house. They've got stairs. We need to get them into their shower. They need to shower. So it's different in where we focus, but we also have overlaps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That helps clarify that a lot. I hope students get to just wash right through to the end to get to that.
Yeah.
So I guess the other part, and for your own particular job, I think you just answered it in that question, Mike. You're a general occupational therapist, you said. So you work with all populations kind of thing, old, young, whatever.
Yeah.
Is that like, I guess my next question was, is there a difference between a rural and urban OT then? Do some urban ones specialize more in certain populations, or?
Really good question.
Difference there?
Definitely, yeah. I would say typically rural OTs work as more of a generalist. So for me, for example, I work in the hospital in acute care. Lots of my acute care role is doing physical rehabilitation. And then a lot of it is assessing cognition and doing cognitive rehab as well. And then a little bit of mental health as well, because well, right now we're lacking in mental health services out here. So I can provide some treatment for that. So I will help with that. But then I'm also working in the long-term care facility. And then I'm also working out in the community. So I'm going to people's homes. And like you said, we see kids all the way up to end of life. But in the city, it does tend to be more specialized in one specific area, which is great if that is what you're interested in. So say if you got hired at a hospital in the city, you're usually working on one unit. You are working on the ortho unit. So people who've had knee and hip replacements, or you're working on the oncology unit, the cancer unit. You're helping people get comfortable or planning for them to go home. So yeah, definitely different between rural versus urban.
Okay. So I guess another question, and maybe this is just more of a curiosity, is there a certain cause of people needing occupational therapy that you've noticed? Is it accidents, or is it health issues, or is it just what's the most common, or is it, a toss up?
Yeah. I would say both. Probably more so if I think about all the people that I have seen, more so it's conditions. So say a person who's had a stroke,
Okay.
ALS, cancer. What are the other common ones that we see? And I just recently had a person who has had a really bad trauma. So there is some injuries, and I guess it probably depends on what area of OT you work in too, because I did have a friend who worked in the brain injury rehab unit at the Glenrose, and that's all injury.
All injuries.
So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Okay. No, that was just more of a curiosity, just to let for our students to really understand too, where the patients come from.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do come from they're just at home, and actually this is really common in OT, is that people are just aging and they just are not being able to function in their own home. So there isn't a specific condition or injury other than their muscles are just starting to atrophy and get weaker as they age. Yeah. So they need some supports in place.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
Yep. Gord, do you have any questions?
Carly, when you're working with a patient, so really the difference kind of between physio and yourself is you're taking a look at the surroundings that the patient is in and connecting the mind with the body to help to solve the puzzle to help the person get back to where they are, correct?
Yeah. So I was kind of cutting out, but I think I heard mind and body. You're connecting the mind and body to help people get back to what they're doing. Is that what you were saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you take a lot of psychology classes as well when you take the
Yeah, we do take some psychology classes. We also take some neuroscience classes, which is really fascinating. Yeah, and some mental health treatment classes. Yeah, so we learn about a bunch of different mental health conditions that you would learn about in psychology, and specific treatments that we could do to provide to help these people. So say, take for example, somebody who has depression. We can start teaching them about coping strategies. We can also do cognitive behavior therapy, dialectic behavior therapy. So those are all things that you would look at in psychology that we look at and get trained in as well. Yeah.
And I saw a picture with a prosthetic. Do you help people who have prosthetics?
Yeah. Yep. That is another role in OT, that you can help people get fitted with their prosthetics and learn how to use them. We also look at all the proper wrapping to make sure that when somebody's had an amputation, you've got to get the limb shaped correctly so that it can fit into prosthetic properly. So that's something that we get involved with. And then we turn it into a functional, how are you going to function with this prosthetic and all the things you want to do? If you want to go water skiing, if you want to go whatever, like how are we going to make this prosthetic work for you? Yeah, we do that as well.
Carly, I have a quick question too. As a student that's looking into this as an occupation or a job, they're going to go through, say, a bachelor degree in kinesiology. What are the prospects for acceptance into the OT program? And
Really?
what colleges? I'm sorry.
I just said really great question. Sorry, continue.
Oh, no, and that was the question, is that what are the prospects of getting into this course? And you went into the University of Alberta, right? Through Edmonton. Is that where you took your, yes. So maybe just address a little bit of that.
Yeah, how tough it is to get in.
That's a really good question and something I do recall myself asking lots of questions about. I do believe it gets harder each year. When I applied, I'm trying to remember, I think now when I applied, this would have been probably like 5 years ago now. It was the average to get in was, I think it was like 85-ish, I want to say. So your university general average. And I know at the time the really nice thing is that to get that average, they only consider your last 2 years of university. So that's great. You have the first 2 years of university to learn what it's all about and make mistakes and get bad grades. And then in the last 2 years is what they really look at to make up your average for application. I do recall that you also had to make sure you had some volunteering experience that was related to OT, and there was a letter that you had to write. The other thing that I don't know if they've done now, they were talking about adding an interview process, which I'm not sure if they've done that or not. I did hear that they did it, and then they took it away when the pandemic started because they just couldn't. I don't know, but there may be an interview or may not. And I do know when I applied, it is challenging to get in. There was, I think, like 700 applicants is the number that rings a bell. And the class total for Edmonton is about 120 people. So it is definitely competitive to get into. But it's doable. Like I was never a A+ student. But if you work hard and stay focused and show some care and compassion, and that it's something that would be a good suit to you, I think it's doable.
Are the seats in Edmonton just a general pool? All provinces can apply to it. I know some courses, there are certain seats that are designated for, say, Saskatchewan or Manitoba or whatever. Is that the case for the OT program, or is it a general pool?
Nope. There is those specific 15 seats that are designated for Saskatchewan students only. Then the rest is a general pool. They can come from anywhere. We even had a person from the States in my class, but we had people from all over Canada, and there isn't a set number on who can come from where.
Thank you so much for explaining that process for students. That's very good information for them to know.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Yeah.
Well, that's excellent, Carly. I get quite excited about that. Maybe it's something I wish I would have known more about when I was back in the day.
Yeah. Right.
And not just as a guidance counselor, but also as a student. It sounds like an interesting career.
You would have been a great OT, I have no doubt.
I think I would have enjoyed it. All right. Anyways, I think we'll end the recording.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you to all the students who watch. Best of luck.
Awesome job.
Hey, it's unpaused. We can talk again. Yeah.
Good. Oh, okay, I'm glad that's over. I do not like giving presentations, but I think we're okay.
Well, if you don't like them, you're pretty good at them.
You're pretty good at it.
You made it sound very natural, so good for you.
I think it's kind of funny. I had my phone turned down. I was muted on the microphone anyways, but while I'm there, I heard a little buzz in the background. I looked at a text message. It was your mother, Carly.
Watching?
That's awesome.
She-
Her ears must have been ringing.
Well, she must have been, Carly's mom works at the school division office and she has something there for me to pick up at the school division office.
Oh,
That is
She
what a
texted
coincidence.
while you're on there. So I said, I'm busy on a Zoom meeting with your daughter right now. She's doing really well.
Oh, that's awesome. She was pretty excited. She was like, Mr. G wants to do a presentation. Would you be willing to do it? And I was like, oh, sure. That sounds great. She was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, well, we'll,
Well, tell her it'll be uploaded in probably in about 10 minutes, so she can probably catch it if she's on a coffee break or
there you
something.
go.
I'll send her, once we get it on the YouTube, I'll send her the link so she can, she'll, like I've said to many of these students, former students, your parents can finally figure out what you do.
Yeah.
I was telling my boyfriend about it last night. He was like, oh, maybe I should watch so I actually understand what it is that you do.
Much better understanding of what our significant others do when we see these sessions. Yeah, there we go. Well, anyways, we better let you go. You're probably busy, need to get back to work.
Exactly,
And,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
No
Much
problem. It was a pleasure. Even though I was terrified to do it, I enjoyed doing it.
well, you didn't look
And
terrified.
it was nice to meet you guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
see you, Charlie. Take care.
Take care. Have a great Christmas.
Yeah,
Take care. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
same to you. Bye.